Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of The Extra Shift. I'm Chris, here as always with Brendan. How are we doing?
Good. Yeah, it's been a little bit. Unfortunately, it's been a busy time, but also I feel like we've kind of just like gotten into the swing of the hockey season, and like not a lot of like huge things have happened. There's been the day to day.
It's been weird. This has been a very bizarre season so far. There's a couple of things we're going to bring up as we go on, which there are a lot of people who are trying to treat this like it's a regular season. And it's very much not. And like I've got something that I've put in the rundown. I'll give everyone a bit of a heads up. I've included that the blind faith from everybody in the media about the Edmonton Oilers, because everyone is just naturally assuming Edmonton is good.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to say that we're always accurate in our predictions or anything, but I feel like this season, like a lot of predictions about teams have been pretty off base, and it's starting to get far enough into the season. We're probably about a third of the way through, I'd say off the top of my head, and it's like starting to get to the point where it's just like, all right, well, we're pretty wrong about some teams, and I feel like there's a lot of teams around about the middle. But look, we'll get to that as we get there. It is episode 226, so welcome everyone.
To quote the late great Dennis Green, by the way, the former NFL coach, they are who we thought they were. That's where we're at with most of the teams. So 26. Now, as I said, this year I'm focusing on, rather than all the past years, I'm focusing on the current ones in the league. And obviously, there's only really one 26 to talk about. Nathan Walker, folks. Nathan Walker. St. Louis superstar for that crushing St. Louis team that is just steamrolling their way to a really bad first overall pick. We'll talk about that in a minute too. No, you've got for us, obviously, Nathan Walker's the best picked out. Rasmus Dahlin.
I will say, like, I mean, not to take too much away from Stormy, like, I think that early in his career there was definitely a period of time where he was bouncing between being like, all right, is he going to play just like 10 games in the NHL every year? And that's kind of his career, which is, still way better than most people. But like props to him, he's like carved out a pretty much permanent like roster spot on an NHL roster, which is incredible.
And we've talked about that. We talked about that in the preseason. We talked about the fact that Stormy's managed to get himself basically a bottom six player who teams in the league think is reliable. And it's not like just St. Louis. Remember, he's been around a little bit, and he's the sort of player that if St. Louis put him on waivers tomorrow, someone would claim him.
Yeah.
He wouldn't get through waivers. He would be claimed.
Yeah.
So like you want to be in that position where that someone's going to pick you up. So, congratulations, Stormy, on hanging in there, even if St. Louis aren't great. But everyone's got to play somewhere, and that's where you get your minutes. Let's get into some of the signings, because this is eventually going to play into something I've got later in the rundown. Adrian Kempe, 8 years, 10.62 in LA. They kind of had this one.
Yeah, to be honest, like obviously that was the big free agent coming into next season. It's starting to look like a pretty thin free agent class for next year.
We're gonna go through that because oh boy,
there's not a lot left, and obviously that locking that away was a pretty important thing for LA. And look, that's a very reasonable deal, I feel like, for Kempe.
It's incredibly reasonable, given that obviously this is the last year they've got Kopitar for. They've got to start looking towards what that team is going forward.
Yeah, it's an interesting transition year for LA, that's for sure.
Well, I think the thing that's worrying LA a little bit, and they won't say it's worrying them, but I think the thing that's worrying LA a little bit is that Anaheim and San Jose seem to be short-circuiting the really prolonged rebuild that everyone was talking about, that the Sharks and the Ducks would need 3-4 more seasons to start being a bit more competitive, and both teams this year have shown they're very much there. And the idea of that, and the idea of, well, we'll get to the Canucks as what the hell are the Canucks and what the hell are Calgary, like they've got to sort of do this now and start locking some things in now, because I think that the Ducks and the Sharks have got good picks out of good drafts. And as we'll get into in a little bit, the next one coming up is not necessarily that. And there might be bit of a gap coming up in terms of the quality picks that you can pick up. So for teams like the Kings, you've got to hold on to your assets. You've got to make sure you retain the good ones. So I think it's a really good deal for the Kings. I think they need to make sure they have these players retained, and it does what they need to do. Ryan McDonough, I was a bit surprised by this one. 3 years at $4.1 million with Tampa. Has he got photos?
I mean, look, I think Tampa have this tendency to make this kind of deal with some kind of veteran to just kind of bolster up their like for a few years ago was like middle pairing defenseman kind of thing, and I think that like he can probably still do that, but he is definitely not the Ryan McDonough that he used to be. That's for sure.
I'm just checking. I'm trying to see if he has protection.
Yeah, he's 36 now.
Yeah, and he's on IR at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, look, obviously it's a step down from the 6.75 he's on this year, but
that's not much.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it now. So he's got 3 no-move clause years. 3 no moves. Now, you were Tampa and you were going to do this deal, and I wouldn't have, but if you were going to do this deal, surely you don't put protection in there, or at least you minimize the protections that you've got a way out of it. Because at some point, the New York Rangers are going to want to get tough. And at some point, the New York Rangers decide that everything old is new again, and can we please have our old captain back? And so they will go and get him. So, like, surely at some point you leave the door open so he can, return to New York with a triumphant thing, and you can get something back for him. But I don't know why Tampa would do that deal. I don't understand it. Every now and then Tampa make a weird one.
Yeah, look, my instinct is that, obviously they know that, the cap's going up and so forth, but I think that there's probably also a degree of security that they're trying to set up around like the rest of their deals. Darren Radish is having like a pretty big kind of role on their team this year, given the injuries that they've had to Hedman and as we mentioned, McDonough and Cernak and guys like that. And he's a pending UFA at the end of this year too, and potentially could play his way into a big extension. Maybe there is a thought there of like, well, we don't know what our the picture of what our deep core is going to look like in the future or whatever. We're pretty comfortable with how McDonough is at the moment. We'll worry about the last couple of years of this contract. We'll give him 3, and we know that he's going to be good for maybe 1.5 of those or whatever, and we'll worry about burying the rest of that later. I don't know. That's kind of my concept, but like again, I don't know that there wasn't another option available for them for that money.
Yeah, I'm a bit bemused by that. I'm more bemused by the contract we're about to talk about. So let's get to that one, because who saw Mike Matheson getting a pay increase?
It's interesting because they talked about that Matheson deal after so to put it in context, the Matheson is coming off an 8-year contract with originally Florida signed.
Florida signed it.
Yeah, and the wording at the time of that was that they went into it with the intention of giving him a short-term contract, and in the room they were like, wow, what about another year? What about another year? And basically talked themselves into like an 8-year long-term kind of extension based on that they were glowing about it at the time, being like, we're so happy he's here or whatever. Within a year of that contract, he was traded.
Gone.
But to be honest, like I feel like he has regained a lot of his prestige that he had when he signed that contract back now. He had a better like showing in the few years in Pittsburgh, in like the role that he had there, being able to kind of be, a puck mover and so forth, that maybe he wasn't getting the chance to do in previous roles. And then, in Montreal, where there was a little bit of a dearth of defensemen who could play that role at the time, I think that he is surplus to what they need now in Montreal, which is interesting. Like, with who they've kind of had come in the last couple of years there, I I'm a little surprised that they've done this extension. I felt like Matheson was more of a trade target for them than a long-term kind of lock, the rest of his career kind of guy.
I had a lot of, having a look at his all the advanced stats and stuff like that on him. It's a really interesting set of advanced stats. Like his relative Corsi percentage is minus 0.7.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like, again, he had a career low of 4.2, minus 4.2. So like he's not the greatest in that regard. He's having a good year in terms of in terms of being on the ice for goals at the moment. That's going well for him, but that's just because they scored early on. I think that with Matheson, what I find baffling again is at least they've given themselves a slight out with Matheson in terms of the contract. The last 2 years are modifieds, but paying him $6 million is a lot of money to pay Mike Matheson at 31 when he's solid. I wouldn't call him good. I'd call him solid. And he's solid to occasionally disaster, depending on...
look, I think that he is a bit dicey at times. Like he is a little bit risky at times. And I just don't know that I just don't know that they necessarily needed that kind of player there with, like, since they originally acquired him, they now have Lane Hudson, Noah Dobson, and Caden Gooley playing like in that. Gooley's a different kind of player, but like Dobson and Hudson, I think you could argue, play a similar kind of puck moving role and kind of a offensive element to the game. I just I don't know. Like I don't hate, like I'm happy to have more like puck moving defensemen on my team, but I just not sure that he's going to get the deployment in Montreal without there being injuries that's going to make.
To give you an idea, I was looking at his stats, and you know how much time he spends on average on the power play?
It wouldn't be a lot anymore. I mentioned is he still the second power play guy?
It's about 17 seconds.
Yeah. Okay. So he's not
Literally.
even the, because I think that Hudson is top power play now. Dobson, I imagine, is second power play now coming in this year. Like that, when they traded for Dobson, I thought, well, the end of Mike Matheson in Montreal. Like they don't need him anymore. They will trade him at the deadline or something. I'm honestly a bit shocked.
That's what I can't work out. Like that's the reason I can't work this one out, is I just find it a bit baffling as to why they would do the deal the way they did the deal. I kind of feel like, if you want to get him on a cheap deal, find a pay increase and no moves for 3 of the 5 years. Like that's a lot. Someone who probably did earn a pay increase a little bit, even though again I still think you're paying a bit of the Winnipeg tax, is Adam Lowry. Adam Lowry, you're paying Winnipeg tax because he's going up to a $5 million over 5. He'll be 38 by the expiry of that contract.
Is he the captain now there? I think he is.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
So again,
I think there's a little bit of that element to it too. I think he's that kind of guy that like they're not necessarily paying entirely for his on ice contributions.
No, and he's got 2 years of no move, and then he's got a 5-team, a 10-team, and a 10-team. So look, I understand why you do have to pay a bit of what we call the Winnipeg tax. And that's a very well-known thing that they have to pay the Winnipeg tax. Did you see the bit of information linked to them, by the way? I saw it today that apparently there's a conversation going on around amalgamating the Winnipeg records. And that
really? Okay.
Gary Bettman they've had conversations around possibly amalgamating the Winnipeg records. Which is going to cause massive issues with some franchises.
I mean, but also at the same time, I feel like maybe if you're going to do it, it's better just get it over and done with.
I think you should. I think they should probably rip the Band-Aid off. But like, I also understand, especially like Arizona people, I can understand why they'd be a bit peeved. Although, again, what that indicates to me is if a new Arizona franchise gets off the ground, the first thing they can do is say to Utah, "We'd like our records."
That'll be interesting.
Records,
it's an interesting precedent to set, isn't it?
Yeah, but the idea that Winnipeg's like, can we have all of our records back? Which makes sense because apart from the fact that it is, it's not the same organization.
It probably stay with the city rather than because I feel like to some degree the records belong to the fans.
This is the other thing too. Like you can't have the record, the record appearance holder for Winnipeg be a player that never played in Winnipeg, for example. Like, it's
Yeah,
weird.
it's strange. Like, I think, if I had to, I don't know if there's any easy answer to it, but if I had to make a decision on it, I think I'd be more comfortable with the records belonging to the city that they were, where the franchise was at the time, rather than the franchise that went around to whole bunch of play, because it just means nothing to anyone. Like,
Yeah,
no one. It doesn't mean anything to a fan of the Colorado Avalanche or whatever, that at some point in time in their franchise history, someone played for another team that they're not a fan of and is the record holder for something. That just doesn't mean anything.
What the idea of the Nordiques,
Yeah,
all of those great French Canadian legends who played for Colorado.
No one in Colorado gives a shit about that.
Of course they don't. I like the idea though of, like, like when the WWF became the WWE and pretended that they were never WWF. I like the idea of now trying to whitewash history and go back and replace it. So they get the footage of the brawl between the Canadians and the Nordique, and they go out now and alter the jerseys so they're all Colorado Avalanche jerseys. And no one can understand for the life of them why these two teams hate each other so much. Why are Colorado fighting Montreal? That's a weird fight. Why do they hate each other? Why are they all standing for O Canada? This is weird. I think it'd be great. That'd be fun to do.
Just fucking, like, I mean, look, it's hard enough to believe anything on the internet these days with fucking AI stuff, let alone like just to fucking gaslight an entire franchise into believing something.
Nathan McKinnon's proud forebears. But no, I mean, look, as we always know, and as you know, it was very well said by a former president. Don't believe everything you read on the internet, and that was Abraham Lincoln. Anyway,
that's right.
Shane Pinto.
Prove it's wrong.
Prove it's wrong. I dare you. Shane Pinto extends for 4 years in Ottawa at $7.5 million.
I think Pinto's an interesting player in, still relatively young, but has had a lot of injury history, has missed a lot of time with various different things, and is still kind of, I feel like if he'd played out the amount of games that we would have expected to see by this point in his career, like, we would probably have a better idea of exactly kind of what his real kind of upside is. Let me have a look. What is his actual?
While you're doing that, I'm going to put out a theory that I've started to really hold over the last 6 months. The Ottawa Senators are the worst franchise in the NHL.
Yeah.
And the reason I say this is because they're nothing.
Yeah.
They're nothing. They don't really exist. They're not so bad and in the news, or they used to be with Melnick, but now the Senators are just there. They exist. They're not. They're the smallest team in the biggest markets.
Yeah. So to give you an idea, he's played this is his 6th season with Ottawa, and he's played 237 games, which is roughly about 3 seasons worth of games. Yeah. Like, he played 12, 5, and then had an 82-game season, and then has not been healthy since then. Played 41, 70, and 27. So it's kind of at the point where it's like, if he could stay healthy, like, this could end up being like a really incredible deal in a couple of years' time. He's still 25. He, should be kind of in his peak, but he's probably like a year or two kind of behind where he probably should be in terms of his form. So yeah, very curious to see. Look, Ottawa is a tough position, I think, to excel in. There are so many players there that I think are very talented, but maybe on a different team or whatever would be more of a star than they are.
I think the problem for Ottawa is that all the players are worn out from their preseason celebrations from winning the preseason. Every time they win the preseason, they've got to hoist that cup aloft, and they're just worn out by the time the season starts. They've been doing laps of Ottawa for weeks. Nobody notices, but they've been doing them. They're out there, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire them. But no, I think that Shane Pinto is on LTIR at the moment for 2 weeks with a lower body injury. Now, those often turn into a lot longer. He has, as you said, only 182-game season in there, and the rest of the time he doesn't get there.
And that was 3.5 years ago.
What I do find interesting about that contract, though, is that Ottawa have built that in because of that contract, the first 2 years are not protected.
Okay.
Second 2 have a 10-team no trade. But the first 2 years, they can get out of that. So if he's injured again, they can move him.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I feel like, again, that's a someone's got to play in Ottawa. It's
look,
if
I think
if he's good, if he's injured, if not injured, he's fine.
I think it's fine for what it is, and probably movable if not. So someone will take a chance on him.
Yeah, Robbie Fabry, 775 prorated after a PTO from St. Louis, because obviously those two just they can't break up. It's impossible.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because, I think we can kind of almost talk about this in conjunction with the next one, because Alexander Texier was basically in Fabry's position in St. Louis, but wasn't, happy there, and ended up, agreeing mutually to have his contract terminated because they couldn't find a trade partner with his existing cap hit. So basically Texier this is almost a trade, really. Texier goes out, he gets his contract terminated, gets signs with Montreal 1 year at $1 million. And Fabry kind of gets signed to this two-way contract, 775, with St. Louis. Fabry, I think, is an interesting player. He was also on Pittsburgh on a PTO, I think, during the preseason, and didn't really kind of impress there. I don't know, there was a point in time where he was kind of an exciting player with a real kind of shot and everything, and I don't know if at this point in his career that's kind of over and he's kind of back to being a tweener. But look, he might get a good chance in St. Louis to carve out an NHL role again. So I guess keep an eye on him, but I'm not expecting anything that, there was a point in time when he was a, dyed in the wool, up and coming top sixer, and that doesn't seem to be the case anymore.
But again, it was in St. Louis. So know, I think there's kind of something nice about the fact that he's back there. I think that's nice at least. But I find that really interesting because, Montreal fans are also very quick to yell at other teams about cap circumvention. But they're quite comfortable with the idea of getting him back after just, not trading for him and getting the other team to cancel the contract and then bring him back. That's just, just pointing it out. I'm just pointing it out. I'm just pointing it out. Let's get into some conversations now around what's coming up. Because let's start with the Olympics because, they're coming. They are happening. Maybe there'll be ice hockey. To
be honest, for a while, I did kind of forget that the Olympics were this year.
I completely forgot. They did ask Bill Daly what they would do if they didn't go to the Olympics in the gap they carved out, and he went, "Oh, we'd have contingent. We don't have a contingency, but look, we've pivoted before, and we've pivoted again. Code for we'd move some games." Basically, Chris Johnston's been all over this with the Athletic. LeBron's been helping him for bits and pieces, but Johnston's been all over this. So what I'm loving is this is the hockey world learning what Italian organization looks like. And it's not great.
Yeah.
So the guy who's the executive director, Christophe Duby, told reporters ice will start being produced at the Santa Giulia Arena towards the end of the year. He had previously, by the way, said that would start happening at the start of December. Now, that was the first thing. He said, we've also seen some tests on the ice at the other arena, and it's working quite well. So we're fairly confident we'll have ice. But not we will definitely have ice. We are fairly confident.
I mean, look, it's kind of important. I feel like that's something that you do want to be pretty confident about.
By the way, there's only 2 rinks.
Yeah.
There's 2 rinks. That's it. They've got 2. For the women's and the men's.
Doesn't feel like a lot.
There's 2 rinks.
I mean, that would be okay if hockey was the only ice sport at the Winter Games. But I'm fairly certain it's not.
Yeah.
I'm fairly certain that's not the case.
It feels a little bit like one of my favorite episodes, one of the greatest TV shows ever created, The Games for the Australian Olympics, the John Clark, Brian Dorr series, where Juan Antonio Samaranch is coming out to inspect all the venues, and they look at Gina Riley, goes, "What's the problem with that?" And they go, "We don't have all the venues." And they spend most of the episode trying to work out which sport they could disappear. Nobody notice. And they come up with eskrem, which ends up being fencing. And they're trying to work out if they can get rid of it. And as Gina Riley says, it'd be a major scandal in fence land. But I think this is a bit different because like this is the, again, and I know that people are going to go, oh, but all the other sports have like massive followings in Europe and massive followings here and massive followings there. But the NHL, this is one of the rare occasions where the NHL are the big boys.
Yeah.
Like this is one of the rare occasions where the NHL as a league is the big boy here, who has the revenues and the players and the star names.
There's not a lot of big leagues involved in the Winter Olympics.
No, exactly. It's the NHL.
Yeah, we're not talking about like the summer games where you've got FIFA and all these kind of other things involved, like
where everyone's involved. Everyone's involved, and you've got to do all this thing for everything. It's literally the only ones you've really got to bend over backwards for to get them there. Look at the last Olympics. All of the how are we going to bend over backwards to get the NHL to go, and they didn't. Now the NHL agreed to go, and I thought it was really interesting. They agreed to go sight unseen with Italian organisation because that was nuts. Like your rinks would be ready for the last games. This was never going to be ready in time. So the IIHF, who are not covering themselves in glory at the moment, confirmed the rink will be 196.85 feet by 85.3, which is 3 feet shorter than the standard of 200 by 85. And narrower. Of
the Olympic size, right? Yeah.
But no, that's the NHL's. And narrower than the international standard of 196 by 98. So it's smaller than an international. It's smaller than the NHL rinks. But here's the interesting bit. They had agreed in the negotiations that it would be an NHL-sized arena. When he was asked if there was a discrepancy, Bill Daly said the IIHF had a different interpretation of what NHL meant than maybe we would have. Now, I'm sorry, but the dimensions of an NHL rink are the dimensions of an NHL rink. We've all been through this with Arizona, right? The arena was small, but the ice was the right size.
Did they? And the AI told them the wrong thing.
Again, I'm going back to the games, the Australian one, and when the Olympic 100 meters track is revealed to be 94 meters because of cabling. And they go, well, you've got a new event, the 94 meters. He goes, no, you got two, the 94 meters for men and the 94 meters for women. Like this is what's going on here, right? This is just crazy. However, that's good news. Good news. Because the IOC sports director, Pierre Ducree, said everyone's now aligned and the ice rink measurements is exactly what they should be. We can compete at the highest level on this ice rink. We are very clear now regarding the measurements of the rink. We can move forward. That's very much nothing to see here while like things are burning behind you. Like Baghdad Bob. No, the Americans are not currently in Baghdad. There's nothing to see here while the arm fall behind him.
Yeah.
Like the fact that it has got this close is amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Like there's no guarantees. There's still no guarantee the NHL's turning up.
No, it's like less than 2 months away.
Yeah, it's start of February.
Yeah, that's like I'm like surely this has got longer than no it is February 6th. That is like 7 weeks away.
So they asked Bill Daly about why the NHL hasn't come up because there was some talk last week of the NHL was trying to put together contingencies and the ice hockey tournament would be played in North America on the rinks because they were free. Because, the NHL's not playing in them. Yeah. So the rinks are free. Send the players to North America. They can all play in the NHL rinks and we can play the Olympic in Canada or in America. And we can work
I'm skeptical that most of those rinks haven't booked like
Conference.
Something during those 2 weeks
probably.
Or whatever.
There will be one, but what they can do is they can work around them. They will be able to do it. You know how they do this.
Yeah.
Like they can turn MSG around in 12 hours.
Yeah.
Concept. The next day have the hockey.
Yeah. That's but you can't tell me MSG is sitting there unused for 2 weeks.
Probably not. But what was really interesting is the reason why they didn't have a backup plan is because the NHL, in a rare moment, has said, we are invited guests. It is not our job to meddle in other people's business. I want you to think about this. Gary Bettman and Bill Daly have gone, oh, no, we couldn't possibly have a say on this. We couldn't possibly put ourselves into the middle of this. I kind of wonder if that's not just Bettman and Daly going, no, you made this mess, you fix it. We've been nothing but nice, but we're not going to fix your problem for you, because if we try to fix the problem and it doesn't work, you'll blame us. So we're just going to sit back and let this mess take place, and you can work it out. Plus, as Bill Daly's basically hinted, if they don't go to the Olympics, the NHL is going to get more revenue because they'll just start up again.
Yeah.
Like, this is a mess of the highest order. And again, the idea, and this is what's probably the most concerning thing, and I don't know if you feel the same way, but like, obviously we know better now through all the trials and stuff like that have happened. But the Olympics used to be seen by people as like the pinnacle of sports organization. It was the biggest sporting event on the planet. It's the most well-organized. Even the Winter Olympics is like well-organized, and the IOC can do that with their eyes closed, because you can do an Olympic Games. A Winter Olympics is nothing. That's easy. Yeah. And the fact that obviously now we know about the fact that like getting anyone to host the Olympic Games is almost impossible.
It's getting tough, yeah.
Like Brisbane got it by default. Yeah. Because nobody else wanted the damn thing.
You're like, you want it? Oh, shit. All right. Yeah.
Like, please, would you like they've started to ask cities. Like literally the IOC for the Summer Games has started to go to cities. Like they've come to Sydney, they've come to other ones and gone, would you like to do this again? We would really like you to do this again because we know you can do it. And the Winter Olympics, like the same thing. Like Italy got it because who else wanted it? No one wanted the Winter Olympics. So I think the problem is, for me, is that it's very hard to go to now viewing the idea that the organization is a step back from the NHL. Actually, 2 steps back from the NHL. I think the AHL would do a better job of organizing this. Like, I think the Q would probably have a go.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, look, it's tough. Like, obviously, I meant to about like, you know, the extent of the Winter Games is bigger than hockey. Like, obviously, hockey is like exciting; it's a big part of it, or whatever. But the Winter Games would still go ahead, and a lot of people wouldn't care if hockey wasn't there. Like it's not the only reason the Winter Games are on or anything like that. There's a shitload of stuff that people watch.
But in a market like the United States, for example, and in a market like, again, North American market. And look, chunks of Europe, Scandinavia will be big all over this.
Yeah. It means a lot to Canada when they win.
Oh, it means a lot to Canada, period. Listen,
yeah.
Like if the Canadian team doesn't win the gold medal, they will riot.
Oh yeah.
They will riot. Speaking of Canadians rioting, how's that for a segue?
Yeah.
As I go into the Canucks, so let's go to the Canucks, shall we? Because the Canucks are. Yeah, I'm just going to bring some stats up onto the screen. So
not good.
No, those stats are not great. We thank Jay Fresh, obviously, for his analytics and his analysis. But points percentage in the NHL, they are 32nd. Last time I checked, let me just count. There are, that many teams. And they are 8th in the division. So, obviously. The expected goals for versus their actual goals for, and their goals against versus their... Well, the expected goals against is interesting. Like, they've conceded less than is their expected, but they're not scoring.
No.
They're not scoring. They can't score. It's almost like you trade away your scorers and you trade away players and you suddenly become a bit crap. Who would have thought that if you moved a lot of the players that they've moved out over the last few seasons, who would have thought if you moved those players out, they'd become poor?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think that there's also an interesting element to this that like they're still like 1 week away from being a 500 team. But I will say that it's a weird season for points percentage, like league wide. There's only 5 teams total that are under 500. Like everyone else is 500 or over, more or less. Oh no, actually, there's one more, I think. Yeah, six teams that are under 500 out of 32, which is, you would think logistically, like if we didn't have loser points, it should be about half the league, but that's not really how it works with this. But usually in previous seasons, we've seen teams with like really bad winning percentages, like, that are like, 0.2, 0.3
Yeah.
or whatever. Like the Canucks are at the bottom of the league with 0.417, which is like, 25 points in 30 games. If they win the next 3 games, they're above 500 and
Can I,
like,
can I just point
in the
out
middle of the pack with everyone else.
the weirdness of this season, and like
Yeah.
I'm genuinely actually upset with this. According to the JFresh stats, look, there are a lot of the things from hockey stats and stuff like that I agree with.
Yeah.
There are some things I find absolutely baffling. For example, San Jose right now have an 8% chance of making the playoffs. According to their model, St. Louis have a 40% chance of making the playoffs, and Vancouver have a 13% chance of making the playoffs. So, what? Like,
look, there's still 50 games to play in the season, and I'm definitely not suggesting that they're going to improve and that it's going to stay this way or anything. But yeah, look, they're not good, but it has been a very mucky middle season so far.
But what I want to get into with the Canucks, this is where I want to go with the Canucks. I think we actually called this, and it has a lot to do with. I phrased it in a couple of ways, but I'm just going to read this quote. So this is Adam Foote on the 25th of November. They're just looking at numbers from people that could be in Russia in a basement, having cigarettes and cashews, telling them they're scoring chances. They're going to depend on our guys and really recognize what we believe has to be fixed and what doesn't. So Adam Foote telling us that, again, stats are terrible, analytics are horrible, and we see what needs to be fixed, and we're going to fix this. Now, my question to you is, what is the issue in Vancouver? And why is it the horrible work by the general manager and president to build a roster relying on an injury-prone goalie, including upsetting a coach who had success to the point he resigned, and then replacing him with Adam Foote, who keeps talking about toughness? If only we could find out what the issue is.
If only this wasn't something that the Canucks had done consistently for like the last fucking 10, 15, 20 years. Like, this is not new behavior.
The Canucks as an organization, and I say this knowing, obviously, that the group is full, and I mean full, of Canucks fans. It is one of the worst run organizations. And I think part of the issue in Vancouver is who calls the shots. Because you've got a general manager.
Yeah.
But does anyone believe the general manager is doing the job? Is Patrick Alvin doing the job?
Yeah, look, it's tricky because, like, there was a point in time when it was kind of believed like, oh, they just have to get the right guy who the owners will like respect, and then they'll let them like do the work that they need to do. Jim Rutherford was that guy at that point in time where it was like, all right, well, he's a Hall of Famer already. He's someone that they'll let kind of actually call the shots and not meddle with, whether or not, and he kind of like Rutherford kind of, made it almost kind of clear that like, oh, I'm going to kind of be the go-between between the owners and the GM or whatever, but they're going to trust me and stuff. Whether or not that's the case or not, it's hard to like really be certain on. There was definitely a point in time where a lot of the moves looked very much like Rutherford moves, but Rutherford moves are like often very big swings, and he brought in Alvin from the Penguins situation and everything, and like that's a very different kind of thing when he took a step back from that. I don't know exactly what Alvin moves look like, but I will say that nothing that they've done has particularly impressed me in the last couple of years.
I mean, look, their big move in the offseason was Van der Kane. And I know he's been injured, but the injury's not been the worst thing that's happened this year. They've been done with him from about game 3.
Yeah.
And like all of the reports in Vancouver are Vancouver got to about game 5 and decided we're moving him. Like, he's going. We don't want him here. He's a problem. So Evander Kane has already started being Evander Kane. And when you pay Evander Kane, who, remember, was a scratch on the Oilers.
Yeah.
Most of the year was a scratch on the Oilers. They're paying Evander Kane $5.125 million for this season. Who the hell is dumb enough to pay Evander Kane that much money to go and literally, it's a payday. He's not playing.
You have to be desperate, honestly, to fill a role. Like obviously, this was after they moved out JT Miller. They had this. They're like, oh well, we're just going to slot someone in. Who have we got? Oh, we'll get Evander Kane. He'll be fine.
Like, but look at that. If you look at that roster now and compare it to what they had built when they were putting that younger core together. Yeah, and it all starts with the Horvat move, and we can't have him. We can't keep him around. We need to get rid of Bo Horvat. He needs to go somewhere else. And the Islanders are absolutely loving that move, by the way. He's very good on the island.
He's been very good.
Isn't that amazing? And like they keep doing the same thing. Like the second that they get a decent player in Vancouver, it's how long are they going to take until they start telling you that they're actually a bit shit and they probably need to move them? And
last year it was Elias Pettersson. It's probably still going to be, it might still be him. Now it's Quinn Hughes.
Let's talk about Quinn Hughes. So, another quote from my favorite coach in the league, the toughest man on the planet, Adam Foote. They asked him about the players in the locker room and what they know about the Hughes thing. Well, they obviously hear it. When I've been around things like that, you're not talking about it. You're trying not to think about it, but it's there and you can feel it. Certain days more than others. I can feel it certain days more than others, and these guys are human. They can feel it. You're the coach. Like, I'm sorry, but if anyone can work out if you're going to trade your best player, you should probably have a bit of an idea. And the fact that there's no protection, so there is no trade protection. He can go anywhere. And I think there's no protection because I think Quinn Hughes' camp probably went, well, they're not dumb enough to move him.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, like we're a couple of years off him being in the discussion as like one of the best defensemen in the game. And now all of a sudden, they're talking themselves into like, oh, we could move him.
But this is the thing, because like, let's talk moves. So Frege has had a weird week with him because I think I read one story that Friedman is really trying to cover all bases by literally linking him to every team in the league. Yeah. But the two teams that were very strongly linked, there's a bit of a problem with, in my view. Now, the two teams that they've really linked him with, the first one's obvious. It's the Devils.
Yeah, there's been talk of that since, Luke was drafted.
And Friedman did confirm the Devils have made an initial inquiry, which is probably just picking up the phone and going, you stupid enough yet or what? No, cool. We'll call you next week.
Yeah, we'll call you tomorrow.
Hi, Jim. See you. Oh, sorry, Patrick. I meant Patrick.
Yeah.
I meant Patrick. And Jim's the background.
Tell Jim I said hi.
Are you on the phone, Patrick? Patrick? I didn't say answer the phone, did I? I love the idea that every time Patrick Alvin answers the phone, there's just this voice from the other room. Put it on speaker. He's not allowed to have a phone call without Jim Rutherford going, no, I think we'll wait.
Do you think he's got that, like, track my phone that, like, parents have with kids and stuff?
Yep, he's tagged. Patrick Alvin has a tag on him at all times. Jim Rutherford knows exactly where. He can't even sneak out of the office to go to meet with someone because he just tracks him. Like, there's just this. He's got a drone, and there's just this drone that follows him home every night. And it just hangs above the house, and then takes off. There's a truck out the front of his house that says "Flowers by Irene." It's like the whole range of things. But the other team that got mentioned was the Penguins. Now, my question to you for both teams, is how are either of these teams sending something back to the Canucks that's worth it?
Yeah, I don't know. Look, the Penguins prospect cupboard is signidigantly better than it was a couple of years ago, but that's not saying a lot. That's not saying a lot. It was, more or less, it was one of the probably bottom three in the league at that point in time. It's probably now at just below the middle of the pack. Like there are some legitimate players on there, and they have actually brought up some young players and prospects and stuff who look like they'll actually be decent NHL players. That's not suggesting that they have the currency to pay, market price for Quinn Hughes. Definitely not. Like, the market price for Quinn Hughes, realistically, for a 26-year-old, could be, on a good day, top 3 defenseman in the league, should be way more than they can afford.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know what realistically the Canucks are expecting to get back with how much they're devaluing the player. Like, I mean, if they can, the thing is, like, they do have the benefit. This is probably better, honestly, for the Canucks if they are actually intending to move him, that they could move him anywhere. Like, they was from anywhere, not just, well, I'll go to these 3 teams. So that should rule out, honestly, the Devils and the Penguins. They shouldn't be able to compete with other teams.
This is the thing. Like, for example, at the moment, the Devils' projected cap space is minus 4.9 mil.
Yeah.
So they're at the moment projected 4.9 over. Now that's with IR happening and stuff like that, so they will be okay. But the other thing is too, like they've moved a lot of pieces out to get the team that the Devils have right now. Now they've got a first, a second, a third for this draft coming up. They've got their first and second for the next 2 after that as well. They don't have a third for the 2027 draft. So they have picks. But in terms of assets to move, here's the funny thing. The only real assets they've got that are movable. So this is quite amusing because they could move Dawson Mercer, but they're not going to do it. But you know who the only 2 real unprotected assets are that are worth any form of trade currency?
On the Devils?
Luke Hughes and Jack Hughes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
they are the only unprotected assets that you can just move.
I mean, look, obviously that's not going to happen.
They're not going to trade a Hughes for a Hughes. They're trying to get the
it would be hilarious. Like it would be the news of the season. And it would be one of those things that how often do brothers get traded? Fairly unheard of. But obviously the point of trading for Quinn Hughes to a smaller degree than the fact that he's a really good player is completing like the Infinity Gauntlet.
Infinity Gauntlet of Fuses,
yeah.
And like the problem is, for example, like they're paying Dougie Hamilton $9 million.
Yeah.
And they can't move Dougie Hamilton without his permission, basically. He has to.
Well, this is the thing. If either the Devils or the Penguins made this trade, like they have some cap space, but probably they have to send back an expensive defenseman back. Like, so for the Devils, it would be Dougie Hamilton. For the Penguins, it's probably Carlson or Letang.
And they'd need to get Dougie Hamilton to agree. He has to agree.
They could probably trade Carlson at like half retained, but then they would also have to add like a bunch to that.
See, that's like I'm looking at the options there in terms of what the Penguins could possibly move out for him. In terms of because cap wise, I'm looking at now. Now cap wise, they don't actually have to. They got 9.5.
No, they've got some cap space. They do have some cap space, but like, look, they're
let's face it, Malcolm's coming off the books at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So they get back.
Possibly. Like I don't think that he wants to. But I think that we'll see what kind of deal makes sense at the end of the year. Like they could, I reckon they could do one more year. I wouldn't be shocked if they do one more year so that like Crosby, Malkin, and can like retire roughly at the same time. But
okay. So
let's say we theoretically have to put together a package. I would imagine that it probably starts with probably they asked for Ben Kindle, who they drafted in the last draft, which people kind of at the time thought was maybe a bit of a reach, but he has turned out to be a legit player this year. And he is still 18 and on an ELC. And maybe they talked them down to Rucker McGroarty and like a package of picks or something like that.
I'm quite sure that you could convince Adam Foote to take Matt Dumba. I'm convinced you could get him to do it.
Probably.
Because he would look at that and go, that's good value.
Probably, yeah.
So, but it's one of those ones, and we've talked about these sorts of trades before. If you've got a player and an asset like Quinn Hughes, you want to get max value back for something like that if you are going to move him. If you decide, the other thing is too, if you decide you are moving Quinn Hughes, I think there's another move you then have to make. You've got to move Thatcher Demko. At that point in time, you've got to move Thatcher Demko. You've got to move Quinn Hughes. And you've probably then got to move Pedersen. Because you've probably just got to absolutely...
You're basically just tearing down at this point in time. I mean, you may have to move Demko anyway, because you just don't know that he's ever going to be what he was.
But this is the problem, because like part of the... When I talked about the build being the issue, part of the reason the build is such a problem is that, and we talked about this, and when I sort of was a bit higher on the Canucks originally, you reminded me of the biggest problem, which is that the Canucks are built around the idea that Thatcher Demko is healthy. And Thatcher Demko is never healthy. As someone who has him in fantasy, he's never healthy. He's back tomorrow.
Well, we
guess what? I expect him to be out again for 3 weeks.
Yeah, we talked about in the off season that they mentioned that, you know, he has some kind of lingering issue that they just have no way to, you know, they can't fix it with surgery. They can't really kind of do much about it. It's going to be something that he just manages for the rest of his career. And we talked about, like, you know, well, we'll have to see kind of what he can be managing that injury. And so far, like, it hasn't looked great.
Well, remember, they talked about the fact that he had a minor thing, but he was only going to be out 1 day. And then the next thing you know, it was 2 days. And the next thing you know, it was IR.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we're just managing his minutes. He's not hurt. We're managing his minutes, followed by, we're putting him on IR. Like, and this is the thing. I think that every part of what they've done in Vancouver is wrong. The whole thing is wrong. If you look at what they've done with the roster, if you look at the moves they've made, and if you look at what they actually have left on that roster, but Elias Pettersson has a no move, which means he gets the ability to dictate where he goes if he wants to go. Right? Brock Besser has the same. He can dictate where he wants to go. Jake DeBrusk can do that too. Right? So if you go down the list, those players that are the assets you'll move all have the ability to dictate where they go, except for Quinn Hughes, who does not have that ability. Or actually, Thatcher Demko this year, if you move him. So if you're going to move Thatcher Demko, you've got to move him before the contract kicks in. And my question is, who's taking on 3 years of no-move Thatcher Demko at 8.5?
I mean, how desperate? Like, it depends on what you can send back. Like, are the Oilers desperate enough if they can send back Skinner?
It's Toronto.
Yeah, if they can send back one of their problems, are they desperate enough? Yeah, if they can send back Skinner, like, maybe they take a gamble on that.
I think they take a gamble on Demko with the idea of, we won't play you a lot in the regular season and try to keep you safe and healthy. And if we do that, then as long as he's fit for the playoffs. That's the only thing I can think of, is that you trade Skinner for Demko, you give other things back, obviously, and you just say to Thatcher Demko, we've got you for the playoffs and only for the playoffs. We don't care. The rest of the time, you'll play, but we're managing everything. And you've then got to have somebody decent in net to take the bulk of the game on. I don't understand. Look, again, I think the problem is for the Canucks is it's a very hard situation to get out of. Like, they've set up a situation in their own, build that is very hard to get out of. Very hard to get out of. And I don't quite think they know what a path out looks like. Like, the path out for them is they just think they're going to get good. Like, they claimed like David Kampf the other day off waivers.
Yeah.
What are they doing? Like, I don't understand what they're doing. And especially since Connor Garland's about to go on to a no move for three of his 4 years at $6 million. Like, DeBrusk is on a no move. It's such a bad. And then Hronek and Pedersen are on no moves. Tyler Myers is no move this year. Who the hell signed that? There's no way. There's absolutely no way. And you just look at the Canucks and think there's not a way out of this that's clear.
No, look, it's tricky. I think for me, there is a tendency in the NHL for teams to get some glimmer of hope and then think that it's gonna keep trending up. The like, a couple of years ago, with the rise of Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes, they look like a team on the rise. They look like a team that was, destined to get back into the playoffs, to continue improving. And there is this kind of expectation that these players will just like compoundingly get better and better, and they'll carry this team while they surround it with other players or whatever. But there is a tendency for a lot of those teams to stagnate, and I think that that's the case with a lot of NHL teams, where taking that next step to going from like a good team to a really good team or a great team is difficult, and so many teams just stagnate at that point and then start taking steps back without ever actually hitting the point where they're kind of at their real peak. And I think that's just kind of unfortunately how the Canucks have been for a long time. It's some of it's luck, but they honestly, like, they did well to get like the core pieces that they got. Like, it seemed like they had the hard to get pieces. They had Pedersen. They had a good surrounding like forward cast that were young and upcoming as well. They had Quinn Hughes. They had Thatcher Demko. So they locked down those three positions.
Well, they had two goalies, because remember, like, originally they had two goalies.
Yeah. And they just kind of squandered it. They just mismanaged it.
It was the Benning era did a lot of damage.
Yeah. In
terms of those late moves. But every move they've made to get out of the problems that Benning created is worse.
Yeah.
Like you get worried with the idea that maybe Canucks fans long for the days of Jim Benning, but like, he didn't put them in this much of a corner. He made some bad trades, but he didn't put them in that much of a corner. Like, and that's not saying he's good. He's not. He's very much not. But like, there's no plan. And you've got as you said, you've got a president of hockey operations. Let's not call him the general manager, even though he is.
Yeah.
Who is a Hall of Famer, who should know, if anyone knows how to do this, it should be Jim Rutherford. And he clearly has no idea. Yeah. And like, I don't think that Patrick Alvin's getting a job after this anywhere, because like, he didn't do this job.
So no, it's tough. I mean, like, he was sought after for until they got him.
But first of all, it's a bad job to start with. But second of all, he didn't even do it. So you've got no track record when they come after you. Like, someone goes to hire you and go, "What did you do?" The Canucks, no, you didn't. And if you want to take, like, you sat in an office and let an old guy talk to you down the, yell down the phone. No. Speak up. Well, the comfort. Let's quickly. I'll just throw this in with the other Canadian team that I want to talk about very briefly. And no, it's not the Leafs, because who cares? It's the Oilers. I'm a bit bemused by the fact that the NHL media continue to try to tell us, "Oh, it's the Oilers, they'll be fine." They're not very good. And what I want everyone to understand when I say that is Connor McDavid the other day played a lights-out third period to get them to overtime, which they lost. Right? He's not playing lights-out periods in tight games to win games for them. He's playing a lights-out period to get them to an overtime period.
Just to get them a point.
And like, their current run of form, because like, I remember, like, the Dangle podcast, for example, they always do, oil timber, and like November is oil timber. They come good in November, and they didn't. So they're like oil Sember now, because December, the Oilers are going to come good in December. And I'm like, at some point, this is the Oilers. Like,
at some point you have to accept that they are a bunch of players surrounding McDavid and Draisaitl.
They are 4-4.
Bouchard, I guess.
They are 4-4-2 in their last 10. That's not great. Like, that's genuinely not great. Like, the Flames are 6-3-1. Like, the Flame, they're behind. It's I look at the Oilers and I'm like, yes, we all expect that Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl will score them out of it. But at some point, that's not going to happen. At some point, other teams are going to work out. We've got more players on the ice than they do.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like that's what's happening this year. The systems aren't working.
The thing I think for Edmonton is that pretty much for like the entirety of McDavid's career, it has just been a matter of at what point in time will the management be able to like bring up some like, you know, young players who can at least just kind of carry play while McDavid is not on the ice, to surround them with like a good enough roster of like young cheap talent to be able to like push them over the edge. And it just kind of hasn't really happened the entire time. They kind of got close enough in the last couple of years that they were able to like bolster a little bit of talent around it by having like just enough cap space free up. But the surrounding cast have just like basically just never been good enough in the entirety of McDavid's career. Like, you know, you look at basically, you know, like when the Penguins had like their 2016, 2017 kind of run, it was because they were able to bring up, you know, Brian Rust, Connor Sherry, you know, a handful of players who were like nobodies from the AHL who turned into, you know, Gensel, Jake Gensel was one of those players. You know, like, you know, several of those players, you know, went on to have like good NHL careers, but they just, you know, they got all those players through their system at the right time. You know, they weren't high picks; they're all third rounders, you know, so forth or whatever. You know, it took a while. They were bad for a while. They were, you know, flaming out of the playoffs for some time, and then, you know, that pushed them over the line. That's like, oh well, now we've got, you know, basically, you know, 3 good lines, and we can actually, you know, surround and kind of make this work. And it's just basically hasn't happened in the entirety of McDavid's career.
No, and I think that, like, there was also, I was reading something went, oh yeah, but you know, Jake Wallman's been out injured. Did anyone watch Wallman play before he went out this year? He was horrible. Like, he was absolutely terrible before he went out this year. And I know he's got a ceiling that's like good when he wants to be, but he was abysmal before he went out injured. Like, this is the thing. It's not like they've had players who were brilliant who suddenly got knocked out of action and it's like, oh, that's why they're struggling. They've just been terrible. Like, they've just been bad. And I think at some point, look, they may make a comeback. They may make the playoffs. They may do really well. But I think it's okay for everyone in the league to acknowledge the Oilers are bad. Like, you can say it. It's allowed to be said that the Oilers are not good. They are only currently in the wild card spot, 1 point above the Sharks. 1 point.
Yeah.
So, you know,
that's not a fantastic place to be.
It's not, especially since, you know, as part of my thing, Celebrini watch. He's amazing. There we go.
Yeah.
Celebrini watch out of the way. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is there's some good news in this, everybody, is that at the latest conversation, the NHL told the governors it's projecting that its revenues are in the neighborhood of 6.8 to 6.9 billion for the 2025-2026 season. This is exactly on track with what they projected, which means that next year the cap is going to make a 10 million jump. That is the good news. They also did say, by the way, that some players would be paid extra on this year's as part of that cap increase.
Okay.
They would be able to pay some players extra on top of their contracts for this season. That's the good news. The bad news is there's no one to use that money on, because free agency, I don't know if you've been paying attention, everybody. But free agency, I get to use one of my favorite lines of all time. It's a Jeremy Clarkson line when he talks about, you know, making a decision with a bunch of really bad cars, and it's like making a decision at a Scottish smorgasbord at a restaurant. There's nothing you recognize and certainly nothing you want. And if you look at the players that are coming up as free agents this year, all of the good ones are taken.
Someone is going to get severely overpaid.
Artemi Panarin's getting 18 million.
Probably, yes.
Someone's giving Artemi Panarin 18 million because they can. Sergei Bobrovsky is going to make that 10 million look nuts, because Bobrovsky's get 20 million. He'll get the first 20.
There's not a lot of guys under 35 coming up
So
in
hang on.
the free agents. That's for sure.
I've got the list. Have you got the list in front of you?
I do, yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna see if I was gonna quiz you on it, but that's okay. So
I can tab out. I haven't had a great look at it. If you want to,
so the number of players that are under 30 who are UFAs. I'm talking about UFAs, not RFAs.
Yeah.
Under 30 in the top, sort of ranked in the top 10.
Yeah.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 in the top 10, but they're all 29.
Yeah.
And one of those is Alex Tuck.
Yeah.
Nick Schmaltz.
Yeah.
Rasmus Anderson.
Yeah.
And Darren Radish.
Yeah. Who I would be shocked if Tampa doesn't extend. Like this is now in December. Like, you know, half of these guys are going to be extended in the next like couple of months.
That's okay. There's a Corey Perry out there. Corey Perry's available, everyone. So Artemi Panarin is up, but let's face it, I think the Rangers will probably pay him too much money to stay there. I wouldn't, but they will. Ovi is not leaving the Caps. He either retires.
No, look, if he's playing anywhere, it'll be for the Caps.
Yeah, if he's playing in North America, he plays for the Caps.
Yeah.
Malkin, same thing. If he's, I don't think Malkin's going anywhere. I think he's.
Look, if he goes anywhere, it's Florida, and I just don't know that they have a role for him that makes sense.
No, they've done that.
I suspect he probably comes back. He probably comes back to Pittsburgh for like 1 year at 4.5 or something.
By the way, did you see in the game the other day where Brad Marchand snuck his way onto the opposite bench in overtime?
No, I didn't see it.
They were having a huddle in overtime, and he snuck his front of the bench.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
So if you're looking at who's coming up though in free agency, like Panarin, Ovechkin, Malkin, I don't think any of them are going anywhere.
No.
Tuck might go somewhere, but like he's only at the moment.
Maybe.
Schmaltz.
I think Carlson will retire.
Yeah, John Carlson will retire. Patrick
Kane is having a pretty good season. So I wouldn't be shocked if he runs it back one more time.
Oh, that'll be Toronto.
Yeah, probably.
Marcus Johansson, like Charlie
Yeah,
Coyle.
Look, there's not a lot here.
Richard Dvorak. Would you like to kick the tires on a used Jordan Eberle?
Yeah. Anthony Mantha's probably played his way into, a new contract somewhere.
Jack Roslovic's around.
Yeah. We know Kopitar's retiring.
There are players behind Kopitar.
Yeah.
Who is retiring.
Yeah.
There might be a lot of money lying around at the moment. But
there's very much no one here that I want.
When Toronto pays Bobby McMahon $7 million because they can.
Yeah.
It's just like managers have to be rubbing their hands together with absolute joy because there's all this money around and there's no one to spend it on. And for those of you going, that's okay because my team is going to rebuild through the draft. Let's talk Corey Pronman. Corey Pronman has done his latest draft rankings and he's written down, I quote him directly here, the draft looks below average at the moment with a handful of exciting prospects at the top, but no clear star caliber name. He has dropped Gavin McKenna to 4th.
Yeah, it's interesting. Look, there's always a bit of this, to be honest. Like most years, there's a little bit of this controversy. But look, it's tricky. There'll probably be someone in that top 5 who ends up, being the guy in a couple of years' time, where they go like, oh, well, this was the obvious pick or whatever. But
I'm going to tell you straight up who I think is going to be the one that everyone salivates at the draft.
Yeah.
It's going to be Ivar Stenberg.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's going to be a Swedish winger.
He sounds tall. I don't know anything about him.
He's 5'11".
Okay, no, that probably not then.
So here's the thing about this draft that everyone's commenting on. It's not a tall draft.
Yeah.
It's a very short draft. So Tynan Lawrence is currently graded by Pronman as 1, except he's got average hockey sense. But he's basically 6 foot. Keaton Verhoff, who's the number 1 defenseman at the moment, is 6'3". Stenberg's 5'11".
I don't care about the height, but NHL teams do.
They do. And then there seems to be a lot of defensemen next up because they're all 6'2".
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
That
and then
that that tends to be the way. Like, I mean, to be honest, like, look, uh, Sidney Crosby is a generous like 5'11". I think he's actually like 5'9". But the reality is like, there's been talk about McKenna for a few years. There's still a few months where maybe he turns everyone's opinion around and heads back into being the number one guy and becomes a superstar. Who knows? Look, it's I think the hard thing is like there's no guarantees, and as we talk about like with the ladder as it is, any one of those teams are like 1 week away from being on the bottom of the ladder in that
I've
like top bottom 10
so
at the moment.
this is why I've kind of come to the conclusion, and of course I'm going to bring it back to the Sharks, because the Sharks have the 6-foot Macklin Celebrini, the 6-foot Macklin Celebrini, who's a teenager. Did you know he's a teenager?
Teenager. I don't know if 19 is a teenager.
No, he's an adult. He can be killed for his country.
He can just barely go on social media in Australia.
19. It's in the name. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But I'm kind of at the point where I actually think that the Sharks might go hard at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Because I kind of feel like San Jose is going to view this as there's nothing really in the draft that's going to entice us. We've already got Eklund and Smith and Celebrini. Like we've gone out and we've added and we've got Nisa and we've gone out and got all the pieces. We need to add some experience to this, not grizzled vet experience, good league level experience that's going to be good for the next 5 years, right? So I think the Sharks might actually go this trade deadline and decide to go try to pick up pieces. Shock me if San Jose decided to do something weird, like knock on Vancouver's door and go, "Hi, just a question. That defenseman that you got, how much?" Right? Do I think they'll get him? No. But San Jose, I think, are going to have the ability to go door knocking. And I kind of feel like Mike Greer might do it because he's been so reserved with the way he's done everything else. And there's not really, like, McKenna's not going to be a game changer with San Jose. None of those players are going to be game changers. They've got their game changers. So I think Anaheim, San Jose, and probably Chicago, who have spent years going, no. I think those three teams are going to get very active come as we approach deadline. And remember, there's going to be a sort of double pivot deadline because of the Olympics. So we're going to see a big rush before the Olympics happens. That's when the big push is going to happen. I could see those three teams in particular making a push at the trade deadline to go and pick up pieces from teams that decide they're rebuilding. And go, we've done our rebuild. We know what, we're just going to start picking the pieces off now. Because if the Sharks move a first, I don't think they're going to feel it as much as they probably would have in previous years.
Yeah.
So same for Vancouver, same for Anaheim, same for Chicago. I think both those three teams can go, let's help, especially when you've got in Chicago and San Jose's case, you've got Bedard and Celebrini. You're looking at this and going, can we put some pieces around them?
Yeah, I mean, look at a certain point in time, you've got your guys, you've got your core, and you're not probably, it's never a bad problem to have too many great prospects, but at a certain point in time, you need to, tune into a team that's trying to compete.
At some point, you become Buffalo.
Yeah,
where you just gather people.
Yeah,
there's no plan. You just get all these prospects who are really highly regarded, but you just stock them and you don't do anything with it. Like at some point, you've got to make the push. And I'm kind of getting towards the situation where I'm looking at the next deadline and going, I kind of think those two teams, especially Chicago and San Jose, I think they're looking at the West and going, the entirety of the West and going, why not? Like, really, why not? At this point in time, that wild card is sitting there. We can do this. And I think they're both, the weirdest part about it is I think both teams are more comfortable in their goaltending than Edmonton. I think San Jose's far more comfortable with Askarov. than Edmonton is with Skinner.
Mm.
So I think they look at it and go, you know what? I think we're okay. I think San Jose need to get a defenseman. They need a defenseman. And so I think a good defenseman on San Jose changes the game a little bit more for them because it gives them something a bit more robust. So I think that you might see those teams go out and go, now we're just going to go trade for need.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, look, if we're talking about teams that may have a package that could trade for Quinn Hughes.
I mean, yes. I mean, and the Sharks are not necessarily comfortable, for example, with, not comfortable with like McMillan and stuff like that. They like him. But let's face it, Shaquille McMillan is not Quinn Hughes.
Yeah, there's no one in their system that's close to Quinn Hughes.
And look, I like Dickinson. I like Sam Dickinson. But if you trade Sam Dickinson for Quinn Hughes, I'm packing his bags.
Yeah.
I'm sending him to Vancouver with warm wishes and warm regards because he may turn into something very good, but you know what Quinn Hughes is.
Yeah.
And also, I think it would just be fun to watch Quinn Hughes play with those players in front of him. I think he'd have an absolute blast.
Yeah.
So that's going to do us. That's going to do us for this episode. We will be back. Hopefully, not as long. Hopefully not as long. Hopefully we get something in before New Year's.
Yeah.
So we will be back. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you everyone for listening. Feel like helping us out. There's links all over the place where you can send us something on, for server costs because, we pay for this. But obviously, thank you everyone. Share it around. Let everyone know about it. Watch it afterwards. Leave comments and we will talk to you all later.
Thanks guys. See ya.